Hello everybody and welcome to the channel Out of Ammo, Out of Time. I'm your host as always, Krabby Terror 8, and here we are in episode 31 of season 1 of the Investigator games. Yes, we've gone back to season 1 because there are a new bunch of investigators from the Dream Eaters expansion. But before I get into that in a bit more detail, what is the Investigator games, I hear you ask? Well, if you are new to the channel, the Investigator games simple idea that I had a while ago was, what if we take each investigator by themselves, true solo, and put them through a scenario and then just list them all out in a league table? A little bit like this one, and then we can see which investigators do best and which ones not so good. And then we can take them through each scenario and then the whole campaign, and whoever comes out on top at the end is covered in glory and gets the Investigator Games trophy of honor, and the ones at the bottom hang their heads in shame. Now we are in season 2 with the Midnight Masks, but because of these new investigators we've gone back to season 1 so that the new investigators can catch up. And as you can see, the new investigators have been doing pretty well. In fact, consistently well so far. We've seen them. So we've had Tommy, and we had last week we had Mandy, and then of course we've I forget his name now. What's his name? You can probably see it, but I can't. Is it? Oh, sorry. There's so many investigators. I can't remember all of their names. Tony, yes. So we've had Tony as well. They've all done pretty well. So Patrice is going to have a bit to live up to here, as all the others have done reasonably well. We've just got Patrice and I think it's Luke are left. And then we can get on with season 2 again. And this is a nice break for me doing this. I've been... I play a lot of video games. I have a matrix of shame of nearly 100 video games that I need to play. I finished The Witcher 2 recently, and I started on the Talos Principle, which is a bit like The Witness, for those of you who knows that game. So a lot of puzzle solving. It really does my head in, so it's a nice break from that to be doing something like this. Anyway, enough about that. So yes, let's have a look at Patrice. I did actually, sorry, before I started, I did have a chat to her in the green room prior to her starting. She's, as you can see, she's actually in the study, waiting for the crowds to come in to watch, just sitting there quietly and waiting. I had a bit of a chat to her. Played a bit of her violin for me. She's very skilled violin player, but her eyes will go a bit squiffy when she's playing the violin and things go a bit weird. So even though I enjoyed her playing the violin, I was kind of glad when she finished. She's a bit like Mandy. She's quite serious, I would say, and not particularly interested in how she does in the Investigator games. It's quite interesting because both Tommy and Tony were quite keen. I think Mandy and Patrice are a little more detached from the whole thing, but still prepared to do it and see how they go. So anyway, let's have a look here before we look at her deck. Just here in terms of the broad stats for Patrice, and spoilers, if you're new to the Investigator games, brand spanking new, I would encourage you to watch other Let's Plays on how to play. Maybe play a few times yourself before diving into this. I am assuming you know how to play the game. So Patrice's stat line is, I don't like it, to be honest. And the reason is yes, her willpower is great, so she's not going to have too many problems with the encounter deck, I guess. Things like Crypt Chill and things like that. But her other stats are all kind of low. So she is really going to be relying on a lot of her survivor abilities to get her to pass things, fight things. So it's going to be quite challenging, I think, when we get to the Ghoul Priest. So we're really going to have to hope we can get through that okay. So I think, yes, we'll have to see how she goes with her stat line. She's reasonably good on her strength and her mental strength with 7 each, so she's reasonably robust from that perspective. Now, I really do like the survivors. Sometimes I have an issue with the guardians and the rogues in particular, that they can all end up being a bit samey. But I have to say that the survivors are not like that at all. I think they're perhaps the most interesting and the most diverse group of any of the different types of investigators. And I suppose this particular class lends itself to diversity because it really is less reliant on particular styles of play, from the sense of, guns and fighting versus magic. So, and Patrice is no exception here. First of all, your maximum hand size is reduced by 3, so 5. So you have 5. And during the upkeep phase, instead of drawing a card, you discard all your non-weakness cards and you draw until you have 5 cards. So you're constantly refreshing your hand, which leads to an interesting dynamic because you obviously you want to play what's in your hand, but then again, you don't want to be spending all your money because there might be something that comes up in the next hand. So there's this tension between using what you've got and waiting. So constantly recycling what you have, and to bear in mind, of course, that when you're discarding, of course, that means there's some benefits with cards that sort of benefit from discard as well. So this lends itself to recursion type play. But also we have to bear in mind that there could be a number of refreshments of the investigator's deck, which of course leads to a horror each time you have to shuffle it all up again. So yes, lots, and it also means it's kind of a bit unpredictable because you never know what you're going to be getting. Like usually when you play, you get your hand to 5 and you kind of work around that depending on whatever you get. In this, it's a bit more chaotic because what you have is going to change, and it's not always going to change for the better. So you're constantly in this state of flux, I suppose, and it really is going to be like a turn-by-turn basis in terms of what you do. So it's quite unpredictable from that perspective. So probably Patrice is not an investigator that a beginner would want to play. I think it really relies on you knowing the cards reasonably well. In fact, knowing the scenario reasonably well. I think it would be quite hard to play Patrice with a blind scenario, or if you're not very experienced in the game. But that's okay. There's plenty of other investigators for that. And also, as a solo, I could be wrong here, and it could be very strong, but it doesn't feel like it's strong in solo because of that lack of predictability as well. Now, her Elder Sign effect gives her +1, and you can shuffle all but 1 card from your discard pile into your deck. So that's also handy because there's your recursion right there. So lots of stuff like that, which is good. Let's have a flip over and just have a look on the other side. Deck size is 42, Survivor and Mystic cards. So she's a Survivor and a Mystic. And also, a couple of other cards as well. So larger deck size with 42, but that makes sense because you're moving through your deck that much faster. So they've been a little bit more generous with her deck size because of that, which means you can put more things into the deck. It also means with spells that, often with spells, they're sort of a single time use. They've got a few charges, then you discard them. The great thing with Patrice is you can bring them back. So if you've got a shriveling and you're like, I'm going to have to just use that up, you can get it back again. So there's less concern, I suppose, around that kind of thing from a Mystic perspective because you can get them back. This is what it says about Patrice. All her life, Patrice has lived for music. The soaring sonatas, the graceful arias, and the booming marches have always been her closest companions. But sometimes when she plays, she can sense some alien intelligence at the edge of her awareness. Something that watches her and waits, something that hungers. The presence has been growing over the last month, and her increasing nervousness is starting to spoil her ability to play the violin. That's not something she can tolerate. After her last concert at the War Theatre in Arkham, she finally decided to take action. It's interesting because in Eldritch Horror, she's a little bit different in that she's one for closing gates and getting clues. So there's more of an insight aspect to her in that game. And I suppose in a way here, there's a little bit of that as well. So that's Patrice in a nutshell. Let's just pop over to the deck. Now, this, as you know, this is not a deck that I have come up with. This is the good old Fantasy Flight Game starter deck, the official starter deck for Patrice. It has 42 cards, or 45 in total, because of these cards which don't count in the overall scheme of things. So it's bigger than usual, and there's some real benefits to that. So it's got the typical things like 2 flashlights and 2 knives, like every Fantasy Flight Game starter deck does, irrespective of which investigator you are. You always get 2 flashlights and 2 knives. Now, Patrice's violin is a nice card. It's a 2 asset. It's got 3 pips, so it's flexible from that perspective. And it has this sort of fast action. Choose and discard 1 card from your hand. Exhaust Patrice's violin. Choose an investigator at your location to either gain a resource or draw a card. So that's a nice ability, although it does take up a hand slot, which is slightly problematic in this deck because the only weapons really are this good old baseball bats, and they take up 2 hand slots, so there's an immediate problem there. But what this allows you to do, I suppose, is that you're going to lose the cards anyway, so it's a nice way of gaining resource or drawing other cards if you need it. So quite a nice card all round, and it can be used with other investigators as well. But a good way to generate a bit of extra money or to draw more cards if you need to. So that's her it's a special asset. Then we got 2 baseball bats in here. I mean, baseball bat is okay, but the problem with the baseball bat is it's problematic compared to things like the fire axe. Obviously, it takes up 2 hand slots and it can break, which for other investigators could be a problem, but of course with Patrice she can get it back, so it's not the end of the world. There's a scrying in here, which is always welcome, and then 2 shriveling. So this is the first time I think a starter deck by Fantasy Flight Games actually has 2 shriveling. Normally they just have 1 shriveling, which means if you get it, then it's going to be easier with the Ghoul Priest. In this case, there's 2 of them, so the chances of us getting 1 and getting it down on the table is so much more, because really without that, it's going to make it quite difficult to deal with the Ghoul Priest, so that's really welcome. Holy Rosary is always welcome as well, as is the Rabbit's Foot, but Holy Rosary is great because that puts our willpower up to 5, which is really fantastic. We've got a leather coat in here, which is always welcome. And in terms of the allies, we've got 1 Arcane Initiate, which is great for finding spells, and then we've got 2 Stray Cats, which can be used to automatically evade a non-elite enemy at your location. So and there's a little point about the stray cats and why they put 2 of them in here, because it says here the Watcher from another dimension is something you always need to be ready to deal with, but a well-timed stray cat, shriveling or blinding light or baseball bat can help you get rid of it. So there you go. There's an Arcane Studies. The problem with Arcane Studies and Dig Deep, as per usual, is are we going to have the resources for those? And I don't think Patrice is going to have the resources for these. She's not, I mean, the violin generates a little bit of extra resource, but it's unlikely we're going to have the resources for those. There is forbidden knowledge, though, that can add a couple of extra things. Scavenging allows you to take an item and put it back into your hand. Is great. Look what I found. There's blinding lights. There's cunning distraction. Drawn to the flame. So these are all great cards to get things going and move forward as emergency caches. Now, Fortuitous Discovery is a new card in the Dream Eaters expansion. I've talked about it before. A pretty terrible card for other investigators because it's reliant on you having these in your discard pile. Now, actually, with Patrice, this is less of an issue because the likelihood is we are going to end up with one or two in the discard pile. So, in this case, it actually makes complete sense. I don't know why it was in the other ones. I can't remember who had it in theirs. Was it? I can't remember if it was Tony or whoever. But in this case, it makes sense because of the discard. We've also got Open Gate, which is also a new one, which is fast. Play during your turn, attached to your location. Investigators may move between any two locations with an attached open gate as if they were connected. Now, again, that would be pretty good, but in the Gathering, it's not really because the gatherings are pretty small. I mean, that's not the fault of the deck, obviously, but in the Gathering, where you've literally only got 4 locations, it's hardly worth it, really. Ward of Protection, always helpful, as is Fearless, as is Guts, as is Survival Instinct. So all good. So I think the thing I like about this deck is the fact that they've put double the shrivelings. If nothing else, one of the problems in the past has been having one shriveling and then it just never turns up, and then the ability to kill the Ghoul Priest is just really, really difficult. Whereas in this case, as long as we get at least one shriveling down, we should be able to deal with the Ghoul Priest fairly easily. Our treachery that we drew was Chronophobia, which is a pretty standard one. You just need to take 2 turns to discard it. And then the enemy is Watcher from Another Dimension. So this is obviously unique to Patrice. It's apparel. It's actually traded Hidden and Hunter. So this is an interesting Hidden as well. It's 5/2/5, so fairly strong fight and evade. Secretly add this enemy to your hand when it comes out. You may fight or evade this enemy while it is in your hand, as if it were at your location. And if you succeed, discard it from your hand. If you fail, spawn it, engage with you. So you can get rid of it just with a fight or evade test. The way that this works is you then fight or evade if you succeed. So you don't have to kill it, you just have to succeed in a single fight. You can discard it, and if you fail, then it spawns engaged with you, or when your deck runs out of cards, if it's in your hand, it attacks you from your hand. So it works in a couple of ways. Quite a nice enemy, and I hope we don't come across it, but we probably will. So yes, there we go. There's Patrice Hathaway. I keep saying Patrice Hathaway's hand. Very nice. So I think that's enough about all of that. Let's go back to here. So we're here ready to roll here with our deck. I'll just shuffle that up. Let's just we already saw we're ready here in the study with 2 clues. With 2 clues as per usual. I've put out the other cards just so I don't have to put them out later. We're here in turn 1. Let's put this here. And I think we'll just shuffle up the encounter deck. I think we are ready to roll. So all I'm going to do is just going to read out the agenda in the act deck, and then we can get going. What's going on? It's late at night and you're holed up in your study playing musical interludes and researching the bloody disappearances that have been taking place in the region. A few hours into your musical interludes, you hear the sound of strange chanting coming from down your parlour down the hall. At the same time, you hear dirt churning as if something were digging beneath the floor. Did I leave that Enigma album on with the chanting, Gregorian? I can't remember. Trapped, as you leap to investigate, the door to your study vanishes before your eyes, leaving behind only stolid wall. What is stolid? Is that the same as solid? Not sure. You're trapped inside your study until you can find another way out. There we go. So, got to get 2 clues and 3 doom on here for the agenda to flip as per usual. So there we are. We are ready to go in the investigator games. Crowd goes wild. Patrice puts down her violin and waves at the crowd. Bows after the short recital that she's given, and it is now time to play the investigator games. Okay, here we go. We're going to draw our 5 cards. You can never have more than 5. Just got to get a little bit used to this. And during the upkeep phase, that's when we don't draw a card, but we discard cards, and then we draw up to 5 again. Okay, that's going to get some getting used to, but anyway, I'll get there. So what do we want? What do we want? What do we want? We want shriveling. We want a stray cat. Or if we're not getting a shriveling, maybe an arcane initiate would be nice. I wouldn't mind drawn to the flame, not to use now, but I think when we get to the cellar, that would be good. And apart from shriveling, some kind of weapon, either a knife or the baseball bat would be nice as well. So let's see what we get. And we draw our 5 cards. And what do we get? What do we get? What do we get? Okay. Well, this is an interesting array of things. So I really want to get the cards. I think the only card I want to keep is the stray cat. I think the others I can live without. So I'm going to put those back and draw another 4. So we draw another 4. So what do we end up with? We end up with a stray cat, a baseball bat, lucky, a ward of protection, and a knife. Okay, so the biggest problem with all that is no shriveling. But having said that, we've got to remember, of course, that you get into this mindset playing this game. We're only going to keep these cards for this go, and then we're going to get a new set. So, and the problem with that is we've got to be really careful with our resources, because shriveling costs... Oh, God, what does shriveling cost? Jeez, you think I would know this, wouldn't you? Shriveling costs 3. Okay, so shriveling costs 3. So we've got to be super careful that we don't, that we have 3, because we can't have it arrive and then it's going to disappear again and be discarded. So we really mustn't overspend. So yeah, see, it's funny, I haven't played Patrice. It's the first time I've played her, so I'm essentially playing a blind in a way. And whilst you can kind of think about these things on one level, it certainly makes for thinking about it a little bit more challenging from that perspective. So what are we going to do? Well, we've got to do some things about getting some clues. Now, we're only a 2, and this is also a 2, so we're looking for a 0 or better. And we're going to lose all these cards anyway. So what do we want to do? So we want to have at least 2 resources left, so that when shriveling comes along, which it inevitably will, we've got 3 resources. So we can spend 3. Now I want to keep... So what do we want to do here? This is a very nice card if we do get the weakness. And I want it lucky because I probably want it because we might need it for the clues. Or do we bring it out for fighting, because we might do that. Yeah, so what I might do is my first action, I'm going to spend 2, and I'm going to bring out the baseball bat, so that's a double hand slot right there. So that's our first action. Second action, I'm actually going to investigate, because I think that none of these cards, and I'm going to lose some, so actually, so what I might do for my second action is investigate. It's a 2 versus 2, but I'm going to put in this ward of protection, because I'm not going to keep it, because it will get discarded anyway. So that will give us a 3 versus a 2, so we need a -1 or better. Chaos Bag gives us a -2, so we fail, but I'm going to spend another 1, and I'm going to use Lucky, so we succeed. Yep, so we get that clue. This is making me play very differently to normal. It's really weird. So, yeah, so we failed by 1, didn't we? Because we were 3 versus 2. We failed by 1, and then we used Lucky to pass the test. So for our final action, I'm not going to spend this because we might get shriveling. I'm going to try and get the clue again. So for our final action, we will do just 2 on 2, 0 or better, and we get a skull, which I think is 0. Absolutely. Number of ghoul enemies. There are no ghoul enemies at location. So fantastic. We get the other clue. Brilliant. So there we go. We get the 2 clues. So that was a pretty successful start for Patrice. What we did first was we spent 2 to bring out the baseball bat, just so we've got a weapon in hand should we need to use it. Then we investigated, and we failed, but we used our Lucky to pass. And then we just straight up tried to investigate again, and we got the second clue. Now I'm not going to throw those clues in, obviously, because if an enemy pops up in the study, we can just get rid of it next time. So that's the end of our go. We're left with 2 cards in hand. We're going to lose those 2 cards. So it was interesting just working out what we were going to spend. It means we spend things much more liberally than we normally would. So we move into the enemy phase. There are no enemies to speak of. So we move into the upkeep phase. And this is where things are a bit different again. We take a resource. Now, just to refresh my memory here, during the upkeep phase, instead of drawing a card, discard all non-weakness cards in your hand and draw until you have 5 cards. So we discard the knife and the stray cat, and we draw 5. Wow. No shriveling. But another baseball bat, another stray cat, an emergency cache. Very nice. Blinding light. Yeah, that's a one-off though, isn't it? I often think blinding light is one you put down on the table with it's a spell, but it's a one-off. So there we go. That's we don't need the 3 for the shriveling. However, we do have another ward of protection. Now again, we will lose this, so it might be worthwhile using it, even if we're kind of like, should we really be using it during the mythos phase? It's probably worthwhile doing, particularly since we've got an emergency cache, so we can get some more cash so that we're on a bit of a better footing there. So that's the end of the upkeep phase. So we will move into the inaugural mythos phase. So we will shift up to here. We're now in turn 2, and the first doom goes down on the table. Let's shuffle up the encounter deck again. And let's see what we get for the encounter deck. I've just realized I bet we get Crypt Chill. Anyway, let's see what we get from the encounter deck. We don't. We get Grasping Hands. Okay. So Grasping Hands, which means we've got to test 3, and we are a 2. Ouch. So we got to throw some things in. Well, I'm definitely going to throw in the blinding light for a start. Oh, I could use the... Actually, just think about this. Fast play, we enjoy a change, cancel that card effect, and then take a horror. So we could instead just take a horror and keep the blinding light. Or we could throw both of them in, and that would give us a 4 versus a 3. Wow. What do we do? I think I might chuck them both in. I'm going to kind of be a bit bullish here. So we've got a 4 agility versus 3. Let's see how we go. 4 versus 3. Should have used that water protection. Well, you don't know before till after. So that's 3 points of damage we take. Youch. Wow. Wow. Okay. Oh, well. That's the way it goes in the investigator games. That was really, really nasty. So Patrice was so busy getting all the clues, she didn't realize all the grasping hands just kind of really, really, really did a number on her. Oh dear. Poor old Patrice. Okay. That's the end of the mythos phase. So we move into the investigation phase, and we have 3 actions. So the first thing we will do is we'll chuck in these clues, which means we can flip this over. You notice the edges of your newly purchased rug are tattered and mud-stained. Finding this odd, you shift the furniture aside and pull back the rug. To your surprise, you see the door leading out of your study. You slowly turn the knob and the door swings open, revealing your hallway below. You jump through the doorway, landing on your feet on soft dirt. You're not landing on someone else's feet. It's a good job that they made that point, landing on your feet. The door to the study slams shut above you. The smell of burning wood fills the narrow hall, intermingled with the scent of rot and decay. So put or set aside hallway, cellar, and attic and parlour. Discard the enemies in the study, put us in the hallway, and remove the study from the game. Okay, well, let's do all of that. So we go doing into the hallway. We flip the hallway. We get rid of the study. Bye-bye study. Okay. And we are now on the barrier. A glowing barrier blocks the path to your parlour. As you move towards it, intense heat forces you to back away. Picking up a handful of dirt, you throw it in the air and knock it towards the barrier with your violin, and you watch in horror as the dirt incinerates. Perhaps there's something in the cellar or the attic that can help. When the round ends, investigators in the hallway may as a group spend the requisite number of clues to advance. Okie dokie, so that's where we are. So we are now in the hallway. What are we going to do here? Well, I think we're going to lose these cards. So I don't want to do that. I don't care about the baseball bat, but I'm going to put in the emergency cash. So my first action. And we get 3. And then I'm going to spend 1. And I'm going to bring out the stray cat. So that if we do get something like that, you know, horror dimension from another dimension, we can just stray cat it and move on. And then for our third action, we're going to go up to the attic. La-di-da-di-da, up to the attic, flip the attic, and we take a horror. Okay. The horror. All right. So that's the end of our turn. So after a horrible mythos phase, where we took quite a bit of damage, we got ourselves out of the study, but we did a bit more setup because we took some more cash so that we're ready for shriveling. We put out the stray cat, which I think is prudent, and we got ourselves up to the attic. So next time, obviously, we'll get the clues in the attic. But that's the end of the investigation phase. So we move into the enemy phase, or the enema phase, as I like to call it. There are no enemies to speak of. So we move into upkeep, flip these over, take a resource. Let me just remind myself again, we don't draw a card, we discard, and then we draw another 5 cards. We'll discard the baseball bat, and we will draw 5 more cards. Come on, give me a shriveling. Yes, we got a shriveling and a drawn to the flame. Oh, there is another drawn to the flame, I think. Let me just check. Is there 2 drawn to the flame? No, there's only 1 drawn to the flame. I'm wondering whether we should have... whether we're better off... I might actually need... but then we'll take the horror again. Because I'm thinking... It's a little bit unfortunate that we get the drawn to the flame now, because that means we could race down to the cellar and get the clues. I think that might be a good idea, even though it's a bit of a waste of time, because then once drawn to the flame is gone, I mean, we might get a flashlight, but we've only got 2, so it's a little bit... I mean, there's a look what I found as well, that's true. So maybe we can do it. Maybe we're being a little bit over anxious about it. Yes, okay. But at least we can get the shriveling out. That's important. That sets us up for the Ghoul Priest. Just ponder about that. Anyway, while I'm pondering about it, let's move into the mythos phase. So we'll pop up here. We're in turn 3, 2 Doom. This will pop next time. It might pop this time, obviously, depending on what we get in the encounter deck. And indeed, the encounter deck gives us an obscuring fog. Wow, okay. So that's, yeah, oof, okay. It's obscuring fog. That means, yeah, that means now that the attic is a 3 shroud location. So I know what I'm going to use Drawn to the Flame for now. Oh boy, there we go. Okay, well that focused our mind somewhat. Okay, interesting. All right, well let's move into the good old investigation phase. Here we are. First thing we're going to do, first action, is we're going to spend 3. And we're going to bring out the shriveling. That's the first thing. Get that on the table. Yes. Yes. So the next thing we're going to do is, I think now that it's a shroud of 3, I think we just go ahead and we play the Drawn to the Flame. So we play the Drawn to the Flame. Draw the top card of the encounter deck. Drum roll. Here we go. What do we get? Ah, rats. Rats. That's fine. Okay, so we get rats. And then we discover the 2 clues at the location. Oops. So we get the 2 clues. Very nice. Which means we get the first victory point. Yay! Crowd goes wild. Whoops. There's these. Yep. The 2 clues. Fantastic. But we now have rats on us. So we have 1 action left. Now, we could use the stray cat and automatically evade an enemy. It doesn't feel like a very satisfactory thing to do. Or we can just baseball bat them. I think we do. So we get fight. We get +2, so that gives us a 4, and they're a 1. 4 versus 1. Might as well throw this in because we're going to lose it anyway. So we might as well make it a 6 versus a 1. So we're going to fight 6v1 on the rats. Chaos Bag gives us a -2, so we succeed. We don't lose the baseball bat, but we do discard the rats. There we go. Fantastic. Okay, there's something liberating about just throwing cards in because it's like, well, I'm not going to keep them. I might as well use them, you know, that kind of thing. So that's quite good. Okay, so that's the end of our go. That was pretty successful. So we brought out shriveling. So we've got that now. We're really much better prepared for the Ghoul Priest. I'm not sure whether Leech Chandler will be someone we'll get on board. It might be helpful, but I really just don't know what cards I'm going to have at the time. So we just don't know. So we did that. We then used Drawn to the Flame, which gave us some rats, but we got 2 clues, and then we just baseball batted the rats to death. So that's the end of the investigation phase. So we move into the enemy phase. There are no enemies to speak of, so we move into upkeep. So, hello tabletops. There we go. We'll flip those over. We'll take a resource, and the cards go back in. Now, one of these is now a fortuitous discovery. So now that's in the discard pile, if we use this, you get +X for this investigation. If you succeed, discover X additional clues at your location. So if we draw another one, it would be a 1, and we get, so that's quite nice. That works really well with this deck. So we put those in, we draw another 5, and we draw into a look what I found. Well, if we can use that down in the cellar, which I think we will, we got another shriveling. And various other bits and pieces. So that's good. I'm just thinking though, probably can't get the shriveling out and do the look what I found all in the same turn, unfortunately. Anyway, okay, so that's the end of the upkeep phase. So we will move into the good old Mythos phase, and I think from memory we're in turn 4, 3 Doom. So here we go. Let's look at this and move this over so this goes down to 0 again. Your house continues to change before your very eyes. The walls have decayed and the ground in many rooms has turned to dirt. It's almost as if you've been transported somewhere else entirely, although every now and again you recognize elements of your former home. There's my music stand. There's my Tchaikovsky concertos LPs. I wondered where they're gone. The lead investigator must decide. Choose one. Either each investigator discards a card at random from his or her hand or takes 2 horror. Which do we do? So we could take the 2 horror. Is there anything here we really don't want to lose? I guess we really... most of these cards we could afford to lose. Thinking, look what I found is the main one we don't want to lose. I don't know. We're going to lose these cards anyway, so I think we lose a random card. Okay, so let's put all these in. Let's flip this over. Shuffle it up. What do we lose? We lose the... Of course we do. Look what I found. Of all the cards we didn't want to lose. Oops, we lost the... Look what I found. That's all right. Ah, dear. That was the one card I didn't want to lose. But anyway, that's what we did. I don't want to take too much horror. Maybe we should have taken the horror. Too late now. Okay, let's go back up to here. So, rise of the ghouls. Rise of the ghouls. The floor beneath you is giving way, and you see a vast network of tunnels twisting into the darkness below. Shapes and silhouettes of strange creatures move swiftly through the tunnels, trying to find a way up. You probably don't want to be here when they do. Indeed. Okay, so there we go. That's that. So let's see what the encounter deck has for us. And the encounter deck has an ancient evils. So without further ado, we end up with a doom. So things have moved forward a little bit faster. That's okay. All right, so let's move into the investigation phase. So I was going to race down and use the look what I found, but we've no need to do that anymore because we don't have it. So what do we do? Yes, I'm wondering what we should do now. Whether we put out another shriveling. It might be worthwhile so that we've got lots of shriveling on the board. So first action, I'm going to use the shriveling. 1, 2, 3. Bring out the second shriveling. We are going to be able to shrivel to our heart's content. And then I'm going to take 2 actions to move down to the cellar. Oops. So we're going to go down back to the hallway and then donk, 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 down to the cellar. Unfortunately, as we're going down to the cellar, we start thinking about a new piece of music that we might be creating. We start shuffling our bits of musical notation around. We're not looking where we're going. We trip on our violin case and go cascading down the steps. Ouch! And we take a damage. Ooh, 4 damage. Ouch! That's actually getting quite bad. Dear. Anyway, yeah. So that's the end of our go. So basically, all we did this time was we brought out another shriveling, and we got down to the cellar and took a damage. There we go. So we will move into the enemy phase. There are no enemies to speak of. So we move into upkeep, flip these over, get a resource. These all go into the discard pile, and we draw another 5 cards. Excuse me. Here we go. So what have we got here? We've got a rabbit's foot, we've got a guts, we've got some scavenging, and scavenging, yes, a rabbit's foot, guts. So fortuitous discovery, I think we'll be using that. And I think rabbit's foot will also be super helpful. Although I'd prefer to have the Holy Rosary, which must be coming up soon. But anyway, that's the end of the upkeep phase. So we move into the Mythos phase. Let's pop up here. So we're in turn 5. We're now aligned here with the Doom. So there's been 5 Doom. We're on Doom number 2. Let's see what the good old encounter deck has for us. And it has dissonant voices, still lives. So we can't play anything, I don't think. We can't play any assets or events. So that's a event. We can't play that. We can't play that. We can't play that. We can play that, and we can't play that. So, oh dear, that's a bit of a problem. But we can use the pips on a couple of them. But that's really unfortunate but that's okay. It will go into the discard pile, which means we can do other things. So let's move into the investigation phase. We are here in the cellar, so the main thing is to try and get these clues, but it's a shroud of 4. I'm really annoyed. I wanted to play the rabbit's foot, but I can't now. So we're only a 2. So, okay. Can't play assets or events. Oh, this is going to make it quite difficult. So the first thing we'll do is we will investigate. So we will throw in the rabbit's foot and scavenging. So that's 2. So that makes us a 4 versus a 4. Basically, 4 versus a 4. Chaos bag, it gives us a -1, so we don't succeed there. Maybe we draw a card, see what we get. Oh, well, that's useless. So, I guess we'll draw another card. No, there's no point because we're going to lose it. I'm just going to take a resource. So that was a very disappointing round. Really, this card really stymied us in that particular case. This is normally not such a big deal, but in this case really did. Yeah, we haven't any flashlights and things, so we weren't able to play anything. We didn't succeed in investigating. We drew a card which wasn't helpful, and that's it. That's the end of the investigation phase. This is the end of the round. So, pretty disappointing, really. Never mind. We will move into the enemy phase. There are no enemies to speak of, so we move into upkeep. We'll flip those. We'll take a resource. Yep. We'll discard these cards. So there's now 2 of those fortuitous discoveries, and we will draw another 5. And we draw into, here we go. We draw into our chronophobia. We'll put that into play in our threat area. But we got a flashlight, we got a lucky. In fact, we got 2 flashlights. But if we're going to use the flashlight, we're going to have to give up the baseball bat. But anyway, at the end of your turn, take a direct horror. Okay. So, not great. All right, we can get rid of this card, though. So, we've got the chronophobia here. Things have slowed down somewhat. Little bit annoying, really. But anyway, we will move into the mythos phase. Move into the mythos phase. Up we go. We're in turn 6. 3 doom, nearly halfway through. Let's see what the encounter deck has for us, and it has a ghoul minion. Well, things are really moving into things are really turning a little bit challenging at the moment for Patrice. So things were going very fast and very smooth, and suddenly they have moved the other way. So, yes. So we're here in the investigation phase. The really annoying thing is there's 2 flashlights here, and if we don't play one of them, we will lose them, and I'm not sure how we will get them back, at least for a while. But anyway, we've got a ghoul minion on us, so let's go ahead and fight this ghoul minion. I guess that's the best thing to do. So the ghoul minion is a 2/2/2, and we can fight it with a baseball bat, which gives us a 4, and does +1 damage. So that's all good. So let's fight it with the baseball bat. So first action is to fight. We fight the ghoul minion with the baseball bat, and we get a -2, so that's a success because we're a 4. We don't lose the baseball bat. We do 2 points of damage, and we get rid of the ghoul minion. That's the first thing. Now I have a difficult choice here because I could play the flashlight, And if we do that, then we can't get rid of chronophobia, so we will take a horror. And I feel like that's probably worth it, unfortunately. So I'm going to spend 2. And I'm going to bring out the flashlight, which means we lose the baseball bat, I'm afraid. But we need the flashlight because we've got 2 shriveling now. That was our second action. So we've got 1 action left. Do we bring out another flashlight? Seems like no, no, because I need the cash as well. Do we bring out dig deep? No. We might need lucky, so I might just draw. No, take a resource. I think we'll take a resource for our final action. Okay. So again, we were that was a bit of a frustrating round because we couldn't investigate for clues. We had to fight that ghoul minion, which we did. But rather than getting rid of chronophobia, I brought out a flashlight, which means at the end of your turn, take a direct horror. So we take a horror, unfortunately. All right, no enemies to speak of, so we move into upkeep. Flip these over. Take a resource. We lose all these cards. And draw another 5. What do we get? And there we go. Here we go. Watcher from another dimension has appeared. Secretly add this enemy to your hand. You may fight or evade this enemy while it is in your hand. Well, there we go. As if it were at your location. If you succeed, discard it. Now, I can't remember where the trigger happens with the stray cat, but I'm going to use it now. I'm sure the timing isn't quite right. So I can discard the stray cat, automatically evade an enemy, and it says if you evade this enemy, discard it from your hand. So that goes. So that's why I kept the stray cat. Okay, so there we go. That's that. So this is good that we've got this because we can use this. We've got 2 others, I think, in our deck now. So it's going to cost us 2, but we then get +2 and we can discover additional clues. So hopefully that will take care of all of that. It would be nice to... I don't know whether it's better to play Patrice's violin or it's better to keep it for the pips, to be honest. Which are very handy. I'm not sure. Anyway, that's the upkeep phase. So we will move into the mythos phase. So we will shift up to here. So we're in turn 7. Things have slowed down a lot. 4. Things are moving on. Let's see what the encounter deck has for us. And the encounter deck has... oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. A ravenous ghoul. It's come at a really bad time. Oh goodness. And we now, well, I guess we'll be shriveling the ravenous ghoul, I suppose. Okay, that's the mythos phase. Things have become very challenging for Patrice, but we might be down, but we're definitely not out. So here we are in the investigation phase. Let's go ahead and kill this ravenous ghoul. We've got lots of shriveling, so let's go ahead and shrivel the ravenous ghoul. That's our first action. So shriveling uses our willpower instead of fight. So what we will do is let's use the guts. So that gives us a 6. So because we're 4, 5, 6. 6 versus 3 to do 2 points of damage. 6 versus 3 to do 2 points of damage. Chaos Baggers is -1, so we do 2 points of damage to the ravenous ghoul. There we go. I suppose we could have tried to evade the ravenous ghoul, but I'm just going to do this. Second action. That again, isn't it? Second action, we will do that again. So we will shrivel the ravenous ghoul. We will use Patrice's violin. I'm going to lose it anyway. So that's another 2. So that's 6 versus 3 again. Chaos Bag gives us a -3, 6 versus 3. So we succeed. The ravenous ghoul is dead. There we go. We didn't take any damage there. They were just... yeah, they were just numbers. We didn't get the things. Okay. All right, so for our third action, we are going to, let me just check, we've got 2 others, I think. Fortuitous discovery. Yes, there are 2 fortuitous discoveries. So basically this says X is the number of copies in your discard pile, so it's going to cost us 2. So we play this card. Investigate, you get +2 for this investigation, so that gives us a 4, and we will reduce the shroud. Can you do that? That's an investigation. No, I think that it's one or the other. So that would give us a 4 versus a 4 versus a 2 versus a 2. So it's sort of 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. Yeah, you can't do both. You can't go, I'll do fortuitous discovery and I'll use the flashlight. You've got to use one or the other. So let's try and do this fortuitous discovery. So basically we've given ourselves +2. So we're now a 4. So let's see how we go. 4 versus 4. Chaos bag gives us hello. Yes, skull, because there are no ghoul enemies at our location. I'm pretty sure there's not. Nope. We succeed, which is fantastic, which means we get 2 clues. Yes, fantastic. So that actually worked out really well. Wow, that was lucky. There we go. There's the cellar. So that's our second victory point. Grab those clues. Great. So we've got all the clues that we need. So that's good. And that's the end of our turn. Okay, so that was successful in the sense that, and we take a horror. So that was successful in the sense that we fought the ravenous ghoul, and we got the clues, but unfortunately chronophobia is still on us, so we took another horror. But next go now, I think we're well placed to move forward and deal with the Ghoul Priest. I'm thinking we probably do need Leader Chandler though, if we can pull it off, but it depends on what cards we get. So I think at the end of this at the end of this round, I'm not going to do it because I need to get rid of the chronophobia, so I'm going to have to wait till next time. So there's no enemies to speak of, so we move into the upkeep phase. So we will flip these over. We will take a resource. We will lose that. We will draw another 5 cards. Here we go. Holy Rosary. Fantastic. So we can get ourselves set up just that little bit more for next time. So that's great. So we will move into the Mythos phase, and we do really need to get moving on because it's turn 8. There are now 5 Doom down on here. Let's see what the encounter deck has for us. And the encounter deck has... Can't get anywhere here. We get another Ghoul minion. It's very annoying, but anyway. Nothing we can do about it. So there we go. So we'll move into the investigation phase. Ah, boy. Okay, so first thing we've got to do is we've got to either fight or evade this this ghoul minion. So if we fight it, we would be fighting with a 2. We could bump that up to 3 with the knife, or we could shrivel it. I think we just do a shriveling again. So we will do a shriveling, and I realized I didn't draw a card back here when I played the guts. I forgot to do it again. Forgot to do it in the last game as well. It's too late. I should have remembered to do it, but it's too late now. So okay, so we're going to shrivel the ghoul minion. I'm going to put Fearless in, so that gives us a 5 versus a 2. I'm going to make that a 6 versus a 2. Yeah, I might as well make it a 7 versus a 2. 7 versus a 2. Chaos Bag gives me a tablet, which I think is -2. So we're fine. If there's a ghoul enemy, take a damage. So I do take a damage. Ouch! But I heal a horror because of the Fearless. and that ghoul enemy is gone. So that was the first action we took. We've got 2 more actions. We are basically just going to get rid of chronophobia. There we go. So we're not ready for the Ghoul Priest yet. I want to bring out the Holy Rosary. I'm really worried about our level of damage because the Ghoul Priest has retaliate. We've really been really unfortunate from that perspective. There are no enemies at any locations, thank goodness. So we move into upkeep. So we will flip those over. We will take a resource. We will discard these cards. Oh, we lose the Holy Rosary. I totally forgot. Oh, no. Oh, well. And we will draw 4 cards. So we draw 4, which means these flip over and we shuffle them. We take a horror and then we draw another card. So we are back. There we go. Oh boy, what a funny bunch of cards these are. It might be good to bring out the leather coat actually. That's one we definitely need. Okay, so that's the upkeep phase. So we move into the mythos phase. Things have really slowed down. We're in turn 9. There are 6 doom. We really need to move now. We're really getting behind. Let's see what the encounter deck has for us. And it has a Rotting Remains, which shouldn't be too bad for us. So it's a 3 versus, and we are a 4. Let's throw in the Blinding Light. So that's a 5. Let's move in the Cunning Distraction, 6. 6 versus 3. A 6 versus 3. Chaos Bag gives us a skull, so we're fine. No problem at all. There we go. So let's move into the investigation phase. So, what do we do here? Well, I think the first thing that we do is we bring out the leather coat so that we've got a little bit more defense. Yep. The second thing that we do is we move into the hallway. Yep. Move into the hallway. And the third thing that we do, there's no point drawing a card. We don't need a flashlight. We just take a resource, I guess. Okay, that's our action. So I think we're ready for the Ghoul Priest, as ready as we're ever going to be. I'm a little bit concerned about our health, but at least we got the leather coat. Okay, so there are no enemies to speak of, so we move into the upkeep phase. We will flip these over. We will take another resource. At least we've got plenty of resources. And we will discard our cards, and we will draw another 5. And there we go. Okay, not sure if that's going to be helpful. Really? I guess so. Ward of protection and things, yep. And we will throw in the 3. There we go, at the end of the upkeep phase. So we move up to here. There we go, we flip this over. Using the barrel from the attic, you carry ice and snow from the cellar and hurl it at the barrier. The barrier sparks and shudders as it consumes the ice and then hisses and fades out of existence. The barrier blocking the passage into the parlour has vanished. Reveal the parlour, put the set-aside Leader Chandler into play in the parlour, and spawn the Ghoul Priest in the hallway. So let's do that. Let's get Leader out of here. There we go. There's Leader. Let's move these. Here. Hello, Patrice. How are you? Oh, you're looking a bit worse for wear, love. Oh, I hope you're all right. And the Ghoul Priest. Hello. Well, Patrice, I think I can bash you up. Oh, you're looking pretty bashed up there. Anyway, that's a different voice than I've ever used for the Ghoul Priest. He's more like, hello. Anyway, never mind. Okay, let's just go back up to here. So what have you done? A woman with a torch stands in your parlour, a glimmer of hatred in her eyes. What have you done to my barrier? She screams, furious. And before you can answer, a ghastly wail sounds behind you, and a creature wearing robes and a deer skull mask tears through the wall, advancing towards you. If the Ghoul Priest is defeated, advance. Yes, okay. There we go. So we move into the Mythos phase. So this is turn 10. This is flipped now. A feral beast, roughly humanoid, with a canine cast and hooves for feet, tears through the ground in front of you. Below the floor, you see vast tunnels beneath your house. Fiendish howling echoes from beneath the underground caverns. Shovel the encounter discard pile into the encounter deck. Discard cards from the top of the encounter deck until a ghoul enemy is discarded. The lead investigator draws that enemy. Great. Okay, so shuffle the discard pile into the encounter deck. Okay, here we go. Let's have a look. Nope. 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 Yes, a ghoul minion. Ghoul minion. So we've got a ghoul minion on us as well. Yes. Okay, so we're on. They're getting out. You hear Craze howl outside, and suddenly all the creatures turn their attention to that sound. They rush to escape the house, breaking down the doors and clawing at everything in their way. At the end of the enemy phase, each unengaged ghoul enemy moves one location towards the parlour. And at the end of the round, put a doom on this agenda for each ghoul enemy in the hallway or parlour. So there we go. Yes, we have 2 ghouls on us, which isn't great. And we get to draw from the encounter deck, and we get... of all the cards to get. Frozen in Fear. Oh my goodness. Actually, no. It's a Treachery. Here we go. When non-witness Treachery card, cancel its effect and take a horror. We will cancel its effect. We will discard it, and we will take a horror. Wow. That was definitely worth it, because yeah, having a Frozen in Fear at this time is just the worst. It's German sausage territory. The worst. There we go. So that's that. Okay. Fantastic. All right. So that's the Mythos phase. So we move into the investigation phase. We have 3 actions. Now, looking at what we have here, we don't have any elusives. We don't have any of those sorts of cards where we can disengage enemies and move into the parlour. So I think the best thing that we can do is, whilst it would be lovely to have Leader Chandler, I think the best thing to do is to try to defeat the Ghoul Priest. Although I'm looking here, we don't have a lot of cards to do that, so that might be quite difficult. But evading the Ghoul Priest is not going to be easy either, because... Let's think about this. So we could just go ahead and shrivel the Ghoul Priest. And we have quite a lot of willpower cards in our hands, so it shouldn't be too difficult. The problem is we've got 2 ghouls, so skulls are -2, so we need to be 2 up. We don't have a lot of space for error either, because we already have 5. So, but our ability to evade is not good. So the only way we could do it is if we spent 2 on Dig Deep and took... No, we can't do that. I think we are going to have to try and hope that we can get this. Okay. This is kind of do or die. This is not good. Unfortunately, we took a lot of damage getting here, and our ability to evade is very, very limited. So let's go ahead and fight. Pity we didn't get out the Holy Rosary, but anyway. So we're going to fight, obviously, with Shriveling. Yeah. So we are a 4. Ghoul Priest is a 4, but we're going to make that a 6. I'd like to get it higher, but I want to keep these for other ones. Or do I make it a 7? Oh boy, this is a tough... We're 2 up. I think we just have to hope. Alright. Like, I could spend more, but then the problem is I don't have any for further ones. So I think we're better off just going 2 up. So here we go. We're going to shrivel the Ghoul Priest, and we get a 0. Fantastic. So that's 2 points of damage on the Ghoul Priest. Ow! And we draw a card. I remembered it this time. And we got an unexpected courage. Wow. Okay. Whew. Okay. So far, so good. That's the first action. Second action, we will do it again. Thank goodness we've got 2 shriveling. We will fight the Ghoul Priest again with shriveling. Hold on. What did we draw? We drew a 0. We didn't draw. Sorry, I was just thinking whether we needed to take some horror, but we didn't. Okay, so we're going to do it again. We're going to use our unexpected courage. So that gives us a 6 again. I think we have to go 6, 6, 6. I know some of you are probably saying, no, throw it in and make it a 7. But it's like, do you make it all a 6, 6, and 6? Or do you make one a 7 and then you're trying to do it against a 5? I'm going to make it 6, 6, 6 each time. So here we go again. We're fighting the Ghoul Priest 6 versus 4. -2 or better. Chaos Bag gives us a -2 again. So we succeed again. So that's another 2 points of damage. Wow. So this is our final action. We will shrivel again. We will throw in these 2. So that's another 2. So that's another 6. A 6 versus a 4. The crowd goes silent as Patrice, using her violin, weaves a complex set of runes in the air. And the Ghoul Priest looks up and... Yes, we did it! There we go. And the Ghoul Priest dies. There we go. The Ghoul Priest dies. Fantastic. Wow, that was quite a game, ladies and gentlemen. That was quite a game. That took 10 turns to get there. We managed to get the 6 experience points in the process. It was touch and go, really quite a challenging investigator to play because of the cycling through of the cards makes it really tough because you just never know what you're going to get, what you can keep. Really makes it quite difficult. But we really got bogged down in the cellar for a while there. But we managed to prevail and we managed to get a shriveling done in the final with 3 goes because if we hadn't done that, we probably would have died. So that was a sort of a lasting encounter. So all in all, I mean, Patrice will by no means be near the top of the table, but she'll certainly be in the 6 pointers. So she did reasonably well. So there we go. There's Patrice for you. Really interesting investigator. Quite challenging in many ways as well. So there you have it. So thank you very much for watching. Next time, we'll be taking the final Dream Eater investigator through the gathering next time. And that will be everybody's favourite dreamer, drifter and wayfarer, Luke Robinson, Mystic. And we will see how he goes. But until then, thank you very much for watching. I'm Krabby Terror 8. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.